Happy college football weekend. It's time to get you covered. 6 on the slate. Let's rock and roll. Friday night football in the Sin City. Who will emerge as the Group of 5 frontrunner from the Death Star in the desert?
The Ducks have soared to the #1 spot in all the land, but that has not boded well for their predecessors. Can Oregon avoid an upset bid in Eugene against a solid Illinois squad?
How good is Vanderbilt? Does Diego and the Doors have another SEC spoiler on hand as they look to put the horns down in Nashville?
Is Colorado finally ready for prime time? The Buffs have a chance to prove it with Cincinnati coming to town for a massive showdown with infinite Big 12 ramifications.
We're talking all that and more on a festive Friday morning from the beautiful Moss Art Center studios here in Blacksburg. I'm Giovanni Heater, alongside Raza Umerani. And, well, my friend, we've struggled so far this season. It's been a chaotic 2024 college football landscape. And we're going to kind of go ahead and say we're struggling because of that.
Yeah, it was another dud last week. I mean, all of the disarray of this year has us off to a dreadful start. We're talking 11-19. We might as well throw these papers out the studio because we're coming off the heels of our third 1-5 performance in the last 4 weeks. I mean, we could get into the nitty-gritty of exactly what's going wrong, but it's really just some wrong reads mixed in with a little bit of bad luck. But listen, nothing that's bad stays bad forever. We promise we are going to get back on track.
A little bit of a spoiler for you. These are props. There's nothing meaningful on these papers anyways. And we don't even know what we're talking about, but it's time for your weekly bout with the books.
Vegas, let's be honest. You've been showing us who's boss, but still, give me my theme music.
We kick off our final weekend in October with a battle in the Big Ten as Brutus and the Buckeyes look to bounce back after the bye week against Nebraska in the shoe.
I know what you're thinking. Nebraska just got throttled by Indiana, and we said just 2 weeks ago that Ohio State was arguably the best team in the country. So we're rolling with the Buckeyes as a big favorite, right? Well, we've got some news for you. We're going against the grain. But it's not for no reason. Yes, the Huskers got their lunch money taken from them a week ago after running into the Hoosiers buzzsaw, but this doesn't feel like a team that'll just lay down and die. It's a well-coached squad under Matt Rule and one that's far too talented to lose to anybody that badly again. And going into that game, this team was 4-1-1 against the spread in 2024. Plus, this might be a bit of a look-ahead spot for Ohio State, even off a bye, as they've got another massive game coming up next week against Penn State. It's tough to beat anybody in conference by 4 tuds, so give us the Huskers to keep this thing close, or at least close enough.
Listen, there's nothing that I hate more than big numbers. Book it, baby. Nebraska, plus 25.5.
Go ahead and call this episode a GIC Return of the Jedi the way we're going back to the Death Star. Sin City plays host to another thrilling Friday night clash as UNLV hosts number 17 Boise State in a de facto playoff game for these 2 CFB hopefuls in the Mountain West.
With Liberty's disappointing loss during the week, one could argue that the winner of UNLV and Boise State is the frontrunner to represent the Group of 5 in the college football playoff. And to be honest, we've gone back and forth on this one. But with the chaotic nature of the 2024 college football season, we're taking the home dog to pull it out on a Friday night, with UNLV getting 3.5. The Rebels are 5-2 against the spread this season and possess the best rushing and scoring defense in the Mountain West. I say this while understanding that they haven't played possible Heisman runaway Ashton Jeanty, and they will this week. We're looking at a matchup of the 2 top rushing and scoring teams offensively in the Mountain West here as well. So in a game with 2 elite Group of 5 teams, where does the ice break? Turnovers. UNLV boasts the 3rd best turnover margin in the entire country. Give us the home dogs to tally a game-changing takeaway on Friday night. After all, it's Halloween weekend, and Lori always finds a way to escape when Michael Myers comes home.
Gotta love a good old Halloween reference. How about we book it, baby? UNLV plus 3.5.
Next up, we're going back to the Big Ten with a balanced bet. It's a top 25 tilt as number 20 Illinois treks into Autzen Stadium to take on number 1 Oregon.
This one is a bit of a momentum play. Illinois was our one correct pick a week ago, so we're gonna go ahead and ride the hot hand. Besides, we can't be the only people to think the spread is a little too big, right? The Illini lost by just 14 at Penn State earlier this year, which is still their only blemish in 2024. In fact, this squad has been the model of consistency this season, standing at an impressive 5-1-1 against the spread. Oregon is obviously elite, coming in as the number 1 team in the country, and we certainly think that they're going to win this ballgame. But like we said with Ohio State, this could be a look-ahead spot for the Ducks as they head to the Big House next week. And at 3-4 against the spread, we're not so sure that they can cover this huge number, even at home. Brett Bielema's boys are simply too sound on both sides of the ball to get blown out like that.
I'm with you on this one, brother. Book it, baby. Illinois, plus 21.5.
Though it's been a house of horrors for Gio and I, we're headed back to the conference where it just means more and taking our talents to turbulent Tuscaloosa. Alabama needs to get right, and it needs to do so at the earliest convenience. The Tide will have a great shot to do so as a ranked but banged-up Missouri team heads into Bryant-Denny.
Well, it happened. For the first time since I've been old enough to pay attention to this beautiful sport, the almighty Alabama is vulnerable. But doesn't the killer always come back for one last scare? And this is the perfect week to do it. A home game in Tuscaloosa against a Missouri team that's been false advertisement all season. And it's kind of wild that the Tigers still have a number next to their name if you've watched them play this year. They showed signs of weakness in a one-score game at home against Boston College. This team has just not panned out before getting absolutely curb-stomped by Texas A&M in College Station to begin October and nearly losing to 2-5 Auburn last week in Columbia. Mizzou will also be without starting quarterback Brady Cook and leading rusher Nate Noel on Saturday. There's just too much raw talent on the field for things not to at least click in spurts for Alabama. And now the pressure is on for the Tide and their college football playoff hopes. Everywhere he's gone, Kalen DeBoer has won. The boogeyman will not fade away before Halloween Day.
Yeah, I think if the Scream franchise taught us anything, it's that the killer definitely always comes back in some shape or form. Roll Tide and book it, baby. Alabama minus 17.
With this week's automatic ace, we're heading back to Boulder, where it seems as though the Buffs might finally be ready for primetime. Colorado looks to stay hot with Cincinnati in town in a game that has serious Big 12 title game implications.
After the Buffs got punched in the mouth by Nebraska in week 2, it felt like they lost a lot of their luster. But y'all better start paying attention, because Colorado is playing the best ball it ever has under Deion Sanders, sitting at 5-2 straight up and against the spread. After winning just one conference game last year in the Pac-12, CU was already 3-1 in the Big 12 and tied for second place. It helps that their defense is vastly improved, ranking 6th in the conference in scoring. Shedeur Sanders is playing like a future #1 pick even without Travis Hunter, who's been a little bit banged up, though the two-way Heisman hopeful should be back for this game. That bodes well for the Buffaloes, as Cincy ranks bottom 3 in total defense in the Big 12. But more than anything, this is a chance for Colorado to make a massive statement. With a big win under the lights at Folsom Field, they can assert themselves as not just a conference contender, but a playoff contender.
Ever wonder why we say "Gimme My Theme Music" at the top of the show? It's a nod to Coach Prime, and he's always got the bite to match that bar. Book it, baby. Colorado minus 6.5.
And now for our super selection of the week, we're headed back to Music City for the unlikeliest of ranked matchups as newly minted top 25 Vanderbilt hosts number 5 Texas, with the Longhorns looking to make amends for last week's disaster in Austin.
Remember last week when I told you all that we were one game away from the pandemonium of the 2007 season? I said that the only thing keeping us from the chaos was one last elite team with no signs of weakness. Well, you can forget about that with Texas losing to Georgia, and Vanderbilt is good. Vanderbilt just does all the right things. It doesn't beat itself, ranking 2nd in the country in fewest turnovers lost with just 2 on the season. It converts on 3rd down, ranking 8th in the country and succeeding in over 50% of its attempts. It's finishing drives, ranking 6th in the FBS in red zone offense, scoring in 28 of its 29 trips. And the leader, Diego Pavia. He's the top rushing quarterback in the SEC, while ranking 6th in the league in total offense. Does Texas win on Saturday? Most likely. At the end of the day, the talent gap is still a huge factor here. But if there's a year for 2 top 5 upsets in the same building from a school like Vanderbilt, it's this one. And at the very least, I love the Commodores to cover the big number.
Those are some awesome numbers, my friend. So horns down, anchor down, and book it, baby. Vanderbilt plus 18.5.
So with that, let's go ahead and recap. We're taking a pair of underdogs in Nebraska and UNLV to cover.
Give us Illinois and Alabama on 2 polar opposite sides of the spectrum.
We're rolling with primetime and the Buffs in Boulder.
And finally, with our super selection of the week, ink in Vanderbilt to cover against Texas.
Hey, we'll see you right back here next week for another Saturday slate.
Until then, when they call, you be sure to tell them we got it covered.